Snoop Dogg, girl, sit down, because what's happening right now, it's messy in a way that doesn't even feel real anymore. Like, this is the kind of story where every time you think you understand it, something twists again, and suddenly you're like, wait, what? So, listen, the way this whole thing is being whispered in industry circles right now, Snoop didn't just casually travel. That man got on a private jet at night and left the country. Not during the day, not announced, not with cameras, quiet, fast, gone. And officially, oh, it's business. Of course it is. It's always business when nobody wants to explain anything. But the real talk going around? Fear. Not confirmed, not on paper, but the kind of fear that makes someone move before anything even officially happens. And the trigger behind all of this is Keefe D. Yes, that Keefe D, the same man who has been tied to the Tupac case for years and years. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable, because Keefe D was always supposed to be pointing at Diddy. That was the narrative everyone knew. That was the direction everything was moving in. For years, that's what people expected. But suddenly, insiders are saying that Keefe D flipped his story, and instead of pointing at Diddy, he pointed at Snoop. And that's where the entire room just goes silent. Because first of all, Keefe D is not exactly a clean source, let's be honest. He has literally admitted before that he lies for money. He made big claims, walked them back, then admitted he said things because there was money involved. So now you're telling me the same man suddenly has a new version of the story, and we're supposed to take that seriously? But here's the part that makes people uneasy. Snoop didn't come out laughing. He didn't go on a press tour. He didn't sit down and say, this is nonsense. He didn't even let his lawyers flood the media. Instead, he left. And that's what's bothering everyone. Because think about it. If someone unreliable throws your name into something this big, the normal reaction is to stand your ground. You deny it, you challenge it, you let the system handle it. You don't disappear. You don't quietly get on a jet in the middle of the night and remove yourself from the country. That move, that's the move nobody expected. And now the story has taken on a life of its own. Because once you leave like that, you can't undo it. People start asking questions you didn't want them to ask. It's no longer just, did this happen? It becomes, why did he react like that? And then it gets even deeper. Because legally, nothing is actually clear. The Keefe D trial already happened earlier this year, and it didn't give closure. The Tupac case is still open, still sitting there, still active. And that means anything can still happen. That's the scary part. Not rumors, not headlines. An open case. And the FBI? Completely silent. No statement, no confirmation, no denial, nothing. And honestly, that silence is louder than anything else right now. Because if there was nothing, they could shut it down in one sentence. But they haven't. So now people are wondering, are they building something, or is this all just smoke? Meanwhile, Snoop is overseas, and every single day he stays there, the narrative gets worse, because now it's not just about Keefe D anymore. It's about behavior. It's about optics. And the industry, they live off optics. And then, just when you think it can't get messier, here comes Suge Knight. Now, you already know Suge has been talking from prison like he's got nothing to lose. And suddenly, he's bringing Snoop into this in a way that feels personal. He's saying Snoop was never loyal. That Snoop made moves behind the scenes that were more about protecting himself than anything else. Now, is Suge reliable? That's a whole different conversation. He has his own history, his own motives. But here's the thing. He was there. He was in the car when Tupac got shot. So when someone like that starts speaking, people listen, even if they don't fully trust him. And then there's this one claim that just sits in the air, making everything feel heavier. Suge is saying Snoop tried to help Keefe D with bail. And when you hear that, you just pause for a second. Because if you're completely innocent, why would you even get involved with someone like that? Why would you be anywhere near that situation. It doesn't prove anything, no, but it adds a layer that makes people look twice. And while all of this is happening, guess who's sitting quietly in the background? Diddy. In prison, serving time, watching this entire narrative shift away from him. For decades, his name was always connected to this case in whispers. Always. And now suddenly, the spotlight is moving somewhere else. And whether that's coincidence or something else, that's the part nobody can fully answer right now. Snoop Dogg. And this is where it starts getting even more uncomfortable, because the longer you sit with it, the more the whole thing feels like a chessboard instead of a story. Like pieces are moving, but nobody's admitting they're the ones moving them. So now picture this. Snoop is overseas, right? No confirmed location, no clear timeline on when he's coming back, and every headline is getting louder by the day. And at the same time, the Tupac case is still open. Not closed, not resolved, just sitting there like a loaded question nobody can answer yet. And here's the trap Snoop is stuck in. If he comes back to the United States and nothing happens, no arrests, no questioning, nothing at all, then suddenly everyone starts saying he panicked, that he ran for no reason, that his reaction made him look guilty when there was nothing there. But if he stays away, if he keeps living outside the country, then the story flips the other way. Now it becomes he knows something. He's avoiding something. Either way, the narrative corners him. There's no clean way out of it anymore. That's what makes this whole thing feel so brutal. It's not even about proof right now. It's about perception. And then on top of that, people started digging into things Snoop himself said in the past. You remember when Suge Knight accused him of trying to help Keefe D? Snoop responded, but not in the usual way. He didn't say, that never happened. He didn't clearly deny being involved. Instead, he said something like, I realize your real lies. And when you hear that now in this context, it hits differently, because that kind of response feels defensive, like someone already expecting the accusation before it fully lands. It's not proof, but it's the kind of detail that keeps getting replayed in people's heads. Now zoom out a little, because this isn't just about Snoop. This whole situation is dragging in everyone connected to that era. The East Coast, West Coast history, the rivalries, the tension that never really died, it's all bubbling back up again. And the names, they're the same ones we've been hearing for decades. You've got Suge Knight still talking from prison, dropping hints, making claims, painting Snoop in a certain light. You've got Keefe D, the one person whose words seem to shift depending on the moment, suddenly being treated like the center of everything again. And then you've got Diddy, sitting in a federal prison, watching all of this unfold while his own situation gets quieter. That's the part people aren't saying out loud, but they're definitely thinking. Because for years, every conversation about Tupac somehow circled back to Diddy. Always. Even if nothing stuck legally, his name stayed in the air. And now, suddenly, the focus is shifting away from him. And it's not like Diddy is free. He's still locked up, still fighting his own legal battles, still appealing his case. But compared to the weight of a 30-year-old murder investigation hanging over your head, this shift matters. It changes how the public sees everything. And then, just when you think the story can't widen anymore, here comes the families. Because Tupac's family is not sitting quietly watching this play out. They've hired lawyers, not small ones either. They brought in Alex Spiro, someone who handles major cases and major names, and they're actively investigating. That alone tells you something serious. Families don't do that unless they believe there's still truth left to uncover. They're not relying on the official investigation anymore. They're digging themselves, looking into whether Diddy had any role, whether anyone else did, whether something was missed or buried, and nobody knows what they found so far. That silence, it adds another layer of pressure to everything happening right now. Because imagine this. If their investigation suddenly uncovers something real, something that points back toward Diddy or even someone else entirely, then the entire narrative shifts again. And if that happens while Snoop is still overseas, still looking like he's avoiding something, the optics become even messier. And it doesn't stop there, because you've also got Voletta Wallace speaking out, and when she talks, people listen. She's not coming from a legal standpoint. She's coming from emotion, from loss, from decades of watching this situation never get resolved. She openly said she's angry, that she feels sick about everything she's seen, especially when it comes to Diddy. And that matters, because her voice carries weight in public opinion. This isn't just industry gossip anymore. It's families, history, pain, all tied into one unresolved mess. And while all of this is building, the timeline keeps stretching. Keefe D's trial, delayed again, now pushed further into 2026. More time for stories to change, more time for deals to happen, more time for confusion to grow. And that's the environment Snoop is sitting in right now. Not knowing what's real, what's coming, what's being built behind the scenes. Just watching from a distance while his name keeps getting pulled deeper into something he was never supposed to be part of in the first place. And honestly, that's what makes this whole situation feel so off. Because Snoop was always seen as the guy who stayed out of the worst of it, the one who moved through both sides, who kept relationships, who didn't get dragged into the core violence of that era. And now suddenly, he's right in the middle of it. Not because of something proven, not because of something confirmed, but because of a story that won't settle, a witness nobody fully trusts, and a decision to leave that changed everything. And the worst part? Nobody is in control of this anymore. Snoop Dogg, and this is where everything just folds in on itself, because when you step back and look at the full picture, it's not one clean story anymore. It's layers on layers, all pulling in different directions at the same time. So now you've got Snoop sitting overseas watching this play out like it's happening to someone else, but it's his name in every headline. And the longer he stays away, the heavier it gets. Not legally, not officially, but socially, publicly, mentally. Because reputation doesn't wait for court dates. It builds its own verdict in real time. And here's the thing, nobody wants to say directly. This entire situation is being driven by uncertainty. Not facts, not confirmed charges, just a mix of silence, history, and one witness who has already admitted he's not reliable. And somehow, that's enough to shake everything. Because if you strip it down, what do we actually have? Keefe D, a man who has changed his story before, now supposedly pointing in a completely new direction. The FBI saying nothing at all. A case that refuses to close. And a reaction from Snoop that didn't match what people expected. That's it. That's the entire storm. But the way it's being interpreted, completely different. Now people are connecting dots that may not even exist. They're going back to old interviews, old rivalries, old statements, trying to build a narrative that explains why Snoop would leave like that. And the more they do that, the more the story grows beyond control. And then there's Diddy, still sitting in prison, still dealing with his own legal fight, but watching something very interesting happen. The spotlight that followed him for decades is shifting. Slowly, quietly, but noticeably. His name isn't the one dominating this conversation anymore. And whether that shift is temporary or permanent, nobody knows yet. Because the moment Tupac's family investigation finds something concrete, everything could flip again. That's the wild part. This story isn't locked. It's still moving. You've got Alex Spiro working behind the scenes with Tupac's family, digging into things the public hasn't even seen yet. You've got Suge Knight continuing to speak from prison, adding his version of events into the mix, whether people believe him or not. You've got Voletta Wallace openly expressing anger that hasn't faded in decades. All of that energy, all of that history, it's colliding right now. And Snoop is caught in the middle of it in a way nobody saw coming. Because let's be real for a second. Snoop wasn't the name people expected to hear in this context. Not for this case, not for this moment. He built his image on being cool, connected, above the chaos in a way, the guy who survived that era but didn't get swallowed by it. And now suddenly he's the one people are questioning. Not because there's solid evidence out in the open, not because there's a confirmed case against him, but because of how everything looks. And perception, especially in celebrity culture, is brutal. It doesn't wait for truth. It reacts to movement. That midnight flight, that's the moment everything changed. Because before that, this was just another rumor tied to an unreliable witness. After that, it became a story people couldn't ignore. The action gave the rumor weight, and now every day that passes without clarity just feeds it more. And here's the harsh reality of the situation. Snoop doesn't really have a perfect move left. If he comes back and faces everything head on, he risks walking into something he doesn't fully understand yet. If he stays away, he lets the narrative grow without his voice controlling it. If he speaks, people analyze every word. If he stays silent, people assume the worst. It's a loop. And once you're in that loop, it's almost impossible to break cleanly. Meanwhile, the legal system keeps moving at its own slow pace. Keefe D's situation is still unresolved. The trial delays keep stretching the timeline, and every delay gives more space for speculation, more space for stories to evolve, more space for confusion to settle in as if it's truth. And that's what makes this whole thing feel so unsettling. Not what we know, but what we don't know. Because right now, there are two completely different versions of this story sitting side by side. In one version, Snoop is an innocent man who reacted too quickly to a messy, unreliable accusation. Someone who made a move out of caution, not guilt, and now has to deal with the consequences of how that move looked to the world. In the other version, he saw something coming, something real enough to make him leave before it reached him, something that made him decide distance was safer than staying. And the truth, it's stuck somewhere in between, buried under silence, speculation, and a case that refuses to close. So now everything hangs on what breaks first. Does the FBI finally say something? Does Tupac's family uncover something that changes the direction again? Does Keefe D shift his story yet another time? Or does Snoop make a move that finally gives people a clear answer? Because until one of those things happens, this story stays exactly where it is right now, unresolved, uncomfortable, and impossible to ignore.